Today we're going to test and compare the A7 III to the A7 IV and see if it's worthwhile to upgrade and what the differences are between these two cameras. And I create content here to help solo creators on the go. I do lots of drone, camera, lens reviews, and tips and tutorials on how to use them, so if that's something that interests you, consider subscribing. Today we're comparing the A7 IV to the A7 III. This was an amazing camera when it came out, probably the best hybrid camera on the market, but now the A7 IV has arrived. From the photo standpoint, the A7 III will shoot raw photos, uncompressed. It'll shoot up to 10 frames a second. They're 24 megapixels. They're really nice, detailed. It's a good size, fairly easy to work with, and it does a great job. But it has a fairly small buffer if you shoot in high frame rate modes. Where the A7 IV shoots 33 megapixel stills, it'll shoot raw, uncompressed, but it actually won't shoot as high. It'll only shoot up to 6 frames a second if you're shooting raw and uncompressed. On the other hand, it has a nearly unlimited buffer because of the faster write speeds on the cards, which we'll get to that in a minute because that's a little bit of some of the differences. But as you can see here, the photos are really excellent. Both of them perform spectacularly well in a lot of different situations. I shot with the A7 III for years and captured some of my favorite photos that you're seeing here on this camera. So it's a very capable photo camera, but getting a 9 more megapixels is really nice. It gives you a little extra room to crop in. And when it comes to photos, if you're doing a lot of wildlife stuff, the A7 IV has the new bird eye AF and animal eye AF and will detect those things. And it does it in movie mode where the A7 III will not. But we'll save the movie stuff for a little bit. But as you can see, overall, both of these cameras will shoot excellent, spectacular photos. Just if you want a little bit more megapixels, obviously the A7 IV is going to win. So it does give you a little bit more detail. And I feel like the dynamic range isn't that much better in RAW, but I do feel like there is a little bit better dynamic range in the A7 IV. Not a lot, but a little bit. When it comes to video, there's a big difference between these two cameras. The A7 III, while it does shoot really nice 4K because it's downsampling that 6K 24 megapixel sensor to 4K, it is limited to 4K 30, and it's limited in its codec. It only will shoot 8-bit 420, which is very limiting when it comes to color grading and if you're going to shoot in log profiles. That being said, the A7 III can shoot really nice video just straight out of the camera, no problem. On the other hand, the A7 IV shoots spectacular 4K video up to 60 frames a second with a crop, but it also shoots in 10-bit 422, which gives you a lot more leeway and just unbelievably more headroom and the ability to be able to shoot and color grade this in post. So if you're shooting an S-Log3, you get a lot more dynamic range, you get a lot more range in what you can do with the colors in post. Now, both of these cameras can shoot HD 120, but the A7 IV is vastly improved. It's much sharper looking and much more usable as far as a video codec. It looks much better than the A7 III is a little soft and a little mushy. So if you find yourself shooting, 4K 60, obviously the A7 IV is gonna win, but if you find yourself wanting to shoot HD 120 more, the A7 IV is gonna give you a pretty substantial improvement in the quality of that HD 120 footage. When it comes to autofocus, both of these cameras do have really good autofocus, but the A7 III is limited to face tracking in video modes. It does do eye tracking in photo mode, but not in video mode, where the A7 IV has a lot more options. It'll do bird eye AF, it'll do animal eye AF, it'll do human eye AF, and it does it all full time in every mode unless you turn it off. And you get a lot more flexibility in how you can make the autofocus function. So if you want it more like a rack focus, you can slow it down and have it be a little slower and a little smoother. With the A7 III, you don't quite get that much granular control over how the autofocus responds to whatever the subject is in your thing. The autofocus on the A7 IV is also a lot quicker. It recognizes subjects much faster and grabs hold of them and follows them through a scene a lot better. The other difference is that while the A7 III has really good tracking modes, it has nothing to compensate for breathing, where the A7 IV will compensate for breathing on Sony G lenses and G Master lenses, especially the primes. The G Master primes have a fair amount of focus breathing on them, but the A7 IV will crop in the correct amount so that you get no focus breathing at all. And that's a big deal if you shoot video with the primes, which I do frequently, and it makes it really nice to not have to worry about the focus breathing. As far as low light's concerned, both of these cameras perform really well in low light. I did a bunch of astrophotography. I've done tons of astrophotography with the A7 III because I owned it for 3 years, and I've done some with the A7 IV, and they both perform really well. So this is the A7 IV at 6400 ISO, which is really not bad at all. I'm gonna crank it up. There we are at, this is the A7 IV now at 12,800 ISO. Standard color profile, no S-Log or anything like that. This is the A7 III at 6400 ISO. This is 12,800 on the A7 III. Definitely noisier. I feel like their noise reduction, in-camera noise reduction, is maybe just a little better, a little more refined in the A7 IV, but I think it's probably also partly that the noise is a little bit finer because you have 33 megapixels to work with instead of 24. But yeah, the difference definitely, the A7 IV wins a little bit in low light over the A7 III, but not by a lot. They both perform really well in low light. So this is in the standard color profile. I'm using the 24-105, which has an optical steady shot built into the lens, and then also active stabilization, handheld, just walking down through the woods here. It's pretty good, pretty smooth. Now let's switch to the A7 III and see how that looks with the same exact setup. So again, this is the same exact setup. No active steady shot because the A7 III doesn't have it, but it does have optical steady shot built in the lens, 24-105, and then the IBIS built into the camera. How's it look? Pretty smooth? Trying to do the same thing. Might be shivering a little more now because it's really, really cold. And then we come to some of the major differences. On the A7 III, you have only a flip out screen like this. So it won't flip out to the side, it won't be fully articulating, it just folds out, goes up, and you can look down. Some people prefer that, especially photographers seem to prefer that. The custom controls are all basically the same, except for that this button on the A7 IV, the exposure compensation dial, can be customized to be almost whatever you want. You get more memory modes on the A7 IV, and then you also get a much faster ability to flip between modes. The other thing that sets the A7 IV apart from the A7 III is how you can switch between video and photo mode and have it recall all the settings from photo mode and all the settings from video mode, so you don't change your shutter speed in video mode and then go back to photo mode and your shutter speed remains the same as what it was from video mode. It'll remember whatever you had your previous shutter speed set at. The other difference is these flappy things, which I forgot how much I hated until I was using this camera again. But these basically, they come out, they're attached by a little hangy thing, and they just kind of flap around. And then another difference is that this doesn't have any power delivery charging. It's a trickle charger through the USB port. And one more thing is you have a slot 1, slot 2, and only one of these is actually a UHS 2. The rest is, or the other one is a UHS 1 card. And when it comes to the A7 IV, you get these nice fold-out doors, plus you also have a full-size HDMI port, which you don't get in the A7 III. You have the individual doors for the mic jack, which is more robust, and the headphone jack, and then USB and micro USB. But the nice thing is with this, is you get power delivery charging. So this can basically last forever if it's plugged into a power delivery port because it will keep the battery charged as much as you're using it. And then of course on the other side you have the single card door where you have 2 UHS 2 cards for SD cards, but you also have the option of using the CF Express Type A, which not a lot of people will need to. It doesn't really do much as far as the performance of the camera. You can shoot everything on this on a UHS 2 card or even a UHS 1 card. But if you want to offload your photos faster or have it clear, be able to write basically unlimited into the buffer, that is nice to have a UHS 2 card at least, or the CF Express A type card. And then of course we have the fully articulating screen, which I really like because if you're shooting portraits, it makes it easier to do that. If you're shooting selfies, you can do that much easier. But the other difference is, this is fully programmable. You get 3 memory modes per photo and video and S&Q mode. So you can switch between photo, video, and S&Q mode really quickly here. And then on each one of those modes, you have 3 separate memory recall positions. Another big difference is the menus. One, this is the older Sony menu system, which is not laid out the easiest to find, and it's not a touchscreen. You can't touch the screen and change anything, so you have to cycle through everything using the 5D or the scroll wheel here, and then select and change whatever settings you want to change. So it's a little bit harder to navigate around. You can set up the A7 III in a way that you really don't need to go in the menu very much, but it is much harder. Whereas the A7S3 and A1 and the A7 IV all have touchscreen menus. So you can go into the menu and get in there. The only difference is it's not a full touchscreen like Canon where you actually have to, you can touch anything on the screen and change it. You actually have to do it, you have to get into the menu using the menu button. Like you can't tap these settings and have it change. And another difference between these two cameras is this camera has a little bit better weather sealing, which if you're somebody like me, does make a big difference. But it also has a slightly larger body. I don't know if we can see that there exactly. It's just not a lot larger, but just slightly larger. And the hand grip is slightly bigger, which makes a big difference if you've got larger hands. The A7 IV is a lot more comfortable to hold for longer periods of time. A couple more upgrades is the screen and the viewfinder are improved over the A7 III. They're a little bit more detailed and a little bit more accurate. Not a lot, but definitely there's some more detail there and a little more accuracy there. And of course, the price went up. This started out at $2,000 when it came out 3 years ago. This starts at $2,500. So that is a little bit bigger price. But if you want that extra performance for 4K 60, if you want the extra megapixels and the autofocus performance, the A7 IV is a really fantastic upgrade. And it has made being able to be a hybrid shooter with one camera body, being able to switch from photos to video, really nice because this thing switches almost instantaneously. And you can program all of your most used photo modes and video modes into memory recall positions, and then just switch between them seamlessly and have all of the settings that you want recalled ready to be recalled and just keep going and shooting. One of the only other differences I noticed is that the A7 III has better battery life over the A7 IV. I did a whole lot of shooting yesterday and today, and between everything I shot yesterday, this had about 63% battery life, where the A7 IV was still at about 69, 70% battery life. Is it worth it for you to upgrade? That really depends on you, how you shoot, and your budget. If you have the budget, then I would say the A7 IV is a fantastic, probably the best hybrid camera I've used so far. The photos are beautiful, the videos are beautiful because you get that extra 10-bit codec and you get the extra megapixels, so the 4K is extremely sharp. The HD 120 is definitely improved over the A7 III. But it is an upgrade cost, so that might be something that stops you. Nothing is stopping you from still shooting great photos and great video with the A7 III. Now, if you want to see other comparisons with the A7 IV, click or tap right there. I put together a small playlist. I will see you in one of those videos. As always, if you have questions, ask me in the comments below, or join my live stream Wednesday nights at 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you again soon in the next video. Cheers.